Last room. They have like 4 cars up there. Hold on, one day. Yeah.
Like my suit.
Well, you couldn't find it where it's supposed to go.
Yeah, every time I go.
I mean, basically right next to it.
Like, how are you used to when you hit so many feet on one of them? Yes. And now you're going so many cars.
Especially that Suzuki.
Yeah.
Some of the best.
Stuck in 5 o'clock.
I know that,
Red light, bro. Ran the red light, had smoke, that's all. Those.
Would be interesting.
We were.
Which one?
Wow.
Just saying. All right, ready to get started. We get started with the City of Centerton Planning Commission for September 20th, 2022 with a roll call.
Jeff Safar.
Here.
Joey Engel.
Here.
Nevin Murphy.
Here.
Craig Langford.
Here.
Gary Harris.
Here.
John Sessoms.
Here.
Ben Lewis.
Here.
Tony Davis. Brandon Swoboda.
All right, first thing on the agenda this evening is the approval of the minutes from 9/6/22.
Jerry, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of 9/6/22.
Joey, I second. Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? All right, second thing is the ratification of the admin approvals. We have 3 track splits and a subdivision, which is an amended final plat. Were there any comments or questions from any of the commissioners or staff on the ratifications? There are not, that I would entertain a motion to approve those.
John, a motion to approve the ratification of administrative approvals as described.
Devin, I'll second.
Motion and a second to approve. Is anyone opposed? All right, under old business, we have 2 old business items that were tabled from the last meeting. First one is rezone 20-22-20 commercial homes by Roth at 8931 Greenhouse Road, A1 to R3 and R3 single family. The applicant is commercial homes by Roth. So I would entertain a motion to bring this back to the table.
That's John, a motion to bring back rezone 22-20 commercial homes by Roth to the table.
Tony, a second.
Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? All right, just a quick recap from the last meeting. It was tabled at the request of the applicant that involved the removal of the commercial portion, which then led us to this evening so that we can revisit it. So at this time, Jeff, will you give us a recap of the proposed changes?
Sure. Jeff Bates Associates, y'all are pretty familiar with the project now. So what we did this time was we removed the commercial and added a few more residential lots. And our first lot is about 84 feet back from the master street plan right away. So, people were concerned about cars running off the road there. So the first house is way back. We got rid of all the commercial. That's really the basics of what we did. From what we heard from the meeting, that seemed like what everyone wanted. If you have any questions.
Dan, do you want to give us any additional staff comments?
just the biggest change, of course, as Jeff mentioned, they have removed the commercial. So that has given them an additional couple of units. For this, it went up to 41 units. It is still 3.94 units per acre. And surrounding developments are 2.35 and 2.80 acres. This does fit in our low medium density residential. On the land use plan, it is anywhere from 3 to 7 units per acre. So the 3.94 fits within that. And even our current R3 zoning is up to, the 7 units, but about 6 units per acre. So it still falls within that. Everything is still the same as the commercial property to the there along Greenhouse Road. So that's the biggest change. And like I said, they do have 41 units instead of the 37. That is the biggest change. And they are providing additional green space, as Jeff mentioned, to buffer a little bit from Greenhouse Road because that is a busy street. When they have the development plans, we will have to discuss how far away their private internal street will be away from that intersection. So there may be additional green space there also, just so that road can move over a little bit. But that can be fleshed out during the subdivision process, because these are all on individual lots.
The intent is still to have the PUD overlay.
Yes, sir.
that's
That
on
is
top.
correct. We are still doing a PUD, which will be heard after you guys do this rezone. You know, if you guys have any additional questions for me.
Are there any additional questions or comments from any of the commissioners? All right. Just a quick recap. I think I counted that we heard from 14 residents at the last meeting. The 15th included I guess 15 and 16 was the rebuttal. I'll call them from the applicants. And most of those, just as a quick reminder, involved traffic. The commercial portion, which has been removed. There were some questions about the trail, and that was covered as far as kind of what that looks like out in that area.
Yeah.
And then we heard about compatibility, and that was the most of the comments that we heard. So at this time, we will open it up to anyone that wants to make any comments. Keep in mind that what we're looking for this evening are any additional facts or any additional concerns that any residents might have in regards to this rezone. If you wish to speak or address the planning commission, we would ask that you come to the podium, and we ask that you state your name and your address, and any comments or questions that you have. Close it. We don't have to open that again because it's just comments. Second call for anyone who wishes to speak.
Harold Castro, 1501 Quail Ridge Way. Thanks again for rescheduling to allow some others to come and be part of it. You already stated the same arguments that we had last time about compatibility with the adjacent neighborhoods. And that's all I have to say. But thanks again for rescheduling.
Anyone else have any comments? Harold?
Sir? Oh, sorry. Matt Lyons, 1290 Elizabeth Loop. Again, thanks everyone for being here tonight. As I look around, I don't think anyone's excited about being here to talk about this again, but appreciate y'all making time. On the 3.94 acres, Diane, I think you mentioned that figure 3.94
Yes.
acres per acre. Is that including the right of way?
Yes, because when we figure like the density for your subdivisions, it does not include any right of way that's dedicated. So yes,
But the open space requirement is calculated with the right of way backed out of that. Is that correct? Is that typical to calculate density of housing one way, but proportion of open space a different way based on the acreage?
yes.
So the reason why we have a planning commission, right? 8 or 9 of you, is that you can use your experience and your judgment to determine whether a project is a good fit for the community. Whether it's in line with the shared vision of the type of community we all want to live in. Not as simple as, does it technically fit within the guidelines and can we tweak the math to make things work? It's about, does a project make sense? If not for that element, we just have the staff, and if it fits the numbers, then we do the project and go. But the reason why you're all here is so that we can think about these things and as a community make the right meaningful decision. We've touched on a lot of these points, but his plan is inconsistent with the Centerton Master Plan. The plan goes beyond a strict allowance for units per acre, and it does touch on some variance, but it states that a variance in units per acre should be throughout different parts of the community, not right next to each other. And it also, it's a fact that the plan calls for new residential development to fit the style and character of the existing developments around it. This does not fit the style and character of the surrounding units. If you take the right of way out of that equation, the density is about 6 units per acre, so closer to triple Creekside and Quail Ridge. At the rezoning, input is also incompatible with the surrounding area. Ignoring the housing, the infrastructure and the roads aren't built for high density development. Similarly, the comprehensive plan calls for high density developments to be close to major arterials and key intersections. The fact that this development is close to neither and isn't planned on having a major arterial run through here.
Major arterial is on the south side of this development. And that will connect with Buckhorn
Airport
Flat.
Road.
No, the
It's a public
southern
road.
portion of the development, that is a major, a
Minor
minor arterial.
It's a minor arterial.
Yeah, but that is still a arterial road.
Well,
That is still a large intersection.
but the completion date of that is indefinite, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So for an indefinite period of time, it will not be a minor arterial, is that correct?
That is correct, but the goal is to create that, to remove traffic from people using the street in Quail Ridge as a minor arterial.
Understood, okay,
So
but at the time of completion, it will not be a minor arterial. There's also the fact that this is at an enhanced fire risk due to the single entrance. Understanding the plan is to change that, but for an indefinite period of time, as we just talked about, there will only be one entrance. There will be a heightened fire risk to all 41 units in here and the surrounding houses. The fact that the PUD calls for these to be closer together and typical exacerbates that risk. And it negatively impacts the surrounding homeowners. It's a big impact to privacy, there's potential impact to land value, and proportionately, we're only talking about creating 41 units. We're not adding 300 housing units and pissing off 40 homeowners, right? We're adding 41, a relatively small number of units, and adversely impacting more than that. So is the trade-off worth it? And I think that's a question for your judgment and your experience. So to close, the vision statement for the Synergy Master Plan reads, compatible land uses will be the foundation for establishing Synergy as a complete self-reliant community. I would just ask that you keep that in mind while making your decision tonight. I ask that you oppose this rezoning and work together with the developer and the community towards a better plan for sensible growth. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak?
Bruce Barkley, 1330 Elizabeth Loop. I appreciate again the chance to come up and talk to you all about this project. I know we've been here quite a few times, and you're probably hearing the same things, but I think it's indicative of where, we believe we need to be as a neighborhood right now, that we need to look at this very carefully. And I hope you'll see that in what we're trying to show you, which is a measured approach, a sensible approach to saying, we think that there's a better way to do this. And the density is an issue, guys. I really feel like, that part was thrown out when we talked about the commercial part of things last time. The density is an issue here. We back up to that, and I back up to this a lot. So we're very vested in what it's going to look like behind our backyard fences. And we know that Roth Builders makes good homes. They're going to make them look great, whatever they do. But putting 6 units on an acre there, it just doesn't make sense, especially when, I know Mr. Murphy talked about, the people were opposed to our subdivisions when they owned the land there. But you did a measured plan, and you did a plan that worked, and the subdivisions look great. And they did a great job with them. This is a piece of land that's sandwiched in between these things. It's 10 acres. This is not an 80-acre piece of land that we're looking at here. There are plenty of places where we can put multifamily housing if you want to, and we know we need to address that for affordable housing in our area. But we are looking at a piece of land that it looks like we're trying to squeeze some things into. Right now, I believe I understood last time that this zoning or this request also allows a 45-foot high structure?
That is incorrect. It's 30.
It's incorrect. No, thank you for changing. It's 35 feet.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, because I wasn't sure where 45 came from. I appreciate that.
That was in inaccuracy in their narrative. It's 35.
Appreciate that. And obviously you can see from somebody whose backyard backs up against this, why I'd be concerned about that. And we want to make sure that we've got, we've got the right kind of feel for this neighborhood, because you've done a great job of it so far. And we want this to be right. This piece of land can be developed. It can be developed R2, it can be developed with single family homes, and it can be lucrative for somebody. It can be the right thing for this. What'll be a trail along here, and what eventually will connect to this park here. But we just ask you to look at the density carefully. I don't know if any of you all traveled the road, but obviously you've heard from us that one of the key problems with the flow on this road is how many neighborhoods spill out into different intersections. There's no intersections there. This would be another additional group of houses that's going to spill out into an unrestricted area there. The school bus drivers should be the ones up here talking about what it's like to try to make that left turn to get down to the middle school and the elementary school. It is not ready for something like this. It just isn't. We just want you to know that we're passionate about Centerton, because it's a great place to live. We want to keep it a great place to live. We're not anti-development. We understood when we moved there, it'd be nice to be a park behind us. That might not be reality, but putting this many structures back there, squeezing this in between all of these single family subdivisions just doesn't look like the right thing for us. So we ask you to oppose this. Thank you.
If I may, just a reminder that this is single family. It is not a multi
I-
development, single
That's
family.
what I was gonna mention.
I made that too. Anyone else wish to address the commission?
My name is Joseph. My name is 1741 Grace Place.
Hold your name, sorry.
Joseph.
Thank you.
My aunt. So I just recently moved here, first planning commission. I don't know anything about
The
anything.
last name, we're sorry.
My aunt, MAYANS.
Okay.
So my question is there anywhere else in Centerton, I've been here only a short amount of time, jumping around, that you have like a 35-foot tall, I know it's not multifamily, but very dense, single family, looking in directly into somebody's backyard like this?
There's going to be a large landscape buffer between the back.
That's not my question. That may be true. That'd be great. But is there anywhere else in Centerton that back up to like a residential neighborhood like this that are gonna be like
There's
this?
some right up here on Main Street, as a matter of fact.
And all single family homes are allowed to be 35 feet tall.
Okay, and is there a reason why like in this zone that we're currently at, that it's not like that currently? Is it just
Like,
What do you mean?
within Creekside and Quail Ridge and so this is like a
Could have
new,
built that.
this is like a new style.
two-story homes, and it could be up to
Yeah,
30.
but it's not gonna be that density, that close to somebody's backyard.
You could still see in somebody else's backyard.
Well, on a typical house, sometimes you can, but
These
this kind
will
of density.
actually have more space between the house and the property.
And the garages will be at the back, so there won't be anyone to look out a window and see into someone else's backyard.
Not gonna Put any windows on the backside of the house.
That's where the garage can be located.
There
Yeah,
could be.
there might be some
To
windows.
answer your question directly, there are places in Centerton where, yes, there are taller buildings that look over shorter buildings. Yes.
Okay. The other issue I just have on the traffic issue, I mean, I think many of you probably been on down Greenhouse Road. That road is extremely narrow at the moment. And how is it that normally like when you design plans for thinking about safety going in and out of there, rush hour traffic, you can't get in off and on Greenhouse Road easily at all. So you think about adding all these new, these new houses. They were talking about when they were building the apartments down at the end that was going to be there, they were going to be expanding that roadway to accommodate that. Is there any accommodation being built for this at the time of build, not 45 years away? That's going to be designed for this or?
The road's being designed right now. And it is a couple years away, yes, but keep in mind that it's a joint effort between Bentonville and Centerton to do the road, and it's being designed.
With like safety things like that, is it typical to go ahead and do something before the safety measure is in place.
Very typical.
Yes.
Typically, those are the things that aid in fixing the problems most of the time, just like the example you used on the corner.
Yeah.
It's actually in Bentonville. Department.
So who makes the decision on whether or not development is safe to go in there? I'm ignorant to that, but who makes the decision saying, yeah, it's gonna be safe if we build all these and we put whatever 41 homes in here now, it's gonna be safe.
Traffic,
Yes,
be a traffic engineer and a
And-
traffic study.
and then in terms of getting in like fire department or EMS. Okay,
Fire department, traffic study on the engineer and the design engineer. Yeah,
good, because I just think like, if you're a fire department, your fire remediator, whatever it is, when you go into a building and you assess and you say, oh, does this building have all the sprinkler system in place? It's not, yes, those sprinklers will
access to.
be in place 2 years from now, or 3 years from now. It's basically what happens now. But anyways, so those are just some of my concerns. Super high density, looking right over everybody's backyard. Whether or not there'll be a development of, landscaping there or not. I don't know, probably up to the developer. And then also the safety and the traffic issue there, so. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak?
I'm Gary Pizer, PEISERT. I live in Whale Ridge Way. Want to thank you guys for tabling this tonight. I couldn't be here the last time. Parent teacher conferences at West for that night, so couldn't go. I'm not going to say everything that everyone else has said. I agree with what they were saying. My issue is high density, already high traffic, getting in and out of greenhouse. People already use Whale Ridge as an arterial. It's not safe. Those are my biggest things. I know something's going there at some point. I just hope you guys use your best judgment when it is and make the right choice now. That's all I got. Yeah, Gary Pizer, PEISERT.
Matthew Freeman, Quail Ridge, 1621 Quail Ridge Way. If you guys notice, we've been here 3 times over the same typical area. We're talking about R3 going on here. I believe it's a consensus between all the residents in the area. If it continues to be an R2, there's no issue. And we've been here 3 different times. We made the same arguments. I think we've expressed ourselves to you guys multiple times, the reasons why we are against it. I think you guys, if you were to ask the builders to really evaluate to R2, you will have no pushback, just like most of the time when you guys have these rezoning questions, you don't really have that many people here inside the court, inside the area making objections, because it's pretty much aligned with everything that's around it. So I really would appreciate if you guys would look at it, the 3 times we've been here, the comments that have been made. And it's not been by 1 or 2 people, it's been by hundreds. So please think about that. It's not the hundreds being here in person, but they sent in emails, they've sent in a little signed Davids for you guys to see them. So please take that into account, not only just today, but also the last 2 sessions. Thank you.
Jeff Roth. Bentonville. I find it somewhat hypocritical that we're worried about us building something that's looking into other people's backyard. When the houses that back up to the property we're talking about are 2-story houses that look into the backyard of the property that we own. So you can look at it 2 different ways. I choose to look at it as we're gonna have 70 to 80 feet of backyard, which by today's standard is a big backyard. So if somebody's worried about the big issue is privacy, I don't think it's not gonna be nothing like what you're used to seeing in a small row housing type subdivision of Featherston, something like that, that got tiny lots. I mean, we got narrow lots, but they are very deep. But keep in mind, we're not backing up to small single
Sorry.
people. We're not backing up to single story houses. We're backing up to a lot of two-story houses already. So it's as far as us to work on a house behind us or around us, we're not gonna be doing that. I mean, and so the concept of what we're gonna build is actually done quite often. Fayetteville done it a lot of it going on in Bentonville. If you try to stay with one particular house, where do you make the transition from one style to another style if we're to always stay with the exact same house on down the road? Are we ever gonna have variety? We're not. We're always gonna, if we go with that line of reasoning. So once again, we've got a really, really nice design that everybody will be proud of. Another thing to think about is this ain't gonna happen tomorrow. You know, we're a year before we get power. You know, 12 months, if we're lucky, from the time that I mean, Joey can testify to this.
Yeah,
I mean,
maybe.
maybe time that my plan is submitted, if we're approved, I'm 12 months, if I'm lucky, 12 months before I get power to a subdivision. So I realistically could be, 14, 16 months down the road, that's after we get it all designed. I mean, so we'd be close to 18 months, 2 years before this thing actually gets off the ground and anything serious starts happening. So, it's not like we're going to come in tomorrow and we're going to build 37 or 41 houses next year. It ain't going to happen. I mean, even if I wanted that to happen, I couldn't do it. So just to let everybody know that what we're going to build it's going to be nice. It's not going to be over 35 foot tall. We're not building these big 3-story skyscrapers. It'll be more of a modern style house that'll blend in, look nice for that street. Won't intrude on anybody, and it'll be something that everybody be proud of. So thank you.
Diana Allen, 201 Blake Drive. And I don't personally have anything as far as this subdivision, other than the traffic is where it pulls in and out of greenhouse and no way out. And what made me want to get up and speak was the gentleman that talked about the school bus. I think a really big concern of the school bus being to pull out of that one way out onto greenhouse. Because it's not just pulling out, it's when, like, we've all been in that wave 2H. In fact, I almost got hit by a car pulling onto Main the other day, because if I pulled out, I couldn't see the traffic coming towards me. So I think that school bus is a big deal. The other thing, in where I live on Blake, there's a loop that goes around to, what is the next street over, Shane? And part of there was talk at one time about connecting Blake and Dawn and Shane and all those, so that emergency vehicles could turn around and get to the road safely. That's a big issue, I think, with this right here. And then the other thing, when the gentleman talked about safety before approval, I do think there's times when we as a city or as your body approve things without having other things in place. Case in point, the junior high, where they don't bus the kids, and we have kids walking down very dangerous roads because there was never a plan to say a contingency. Before you do this, you have to do that. And I think that's kind of what's happening here. And other than that, that's fine.
Matt Lyons, 1290 Elizabeth Loop. Just a couple quick things in the interest of keeping everybody honest here. So 1290 Elizabeth Loop is a single-story house in Creekside. I live there. I'm happy to, Jeff, I can show you pictures. My wife worked really hard on the decorating.
Will address us.
Okay.
Thank you.
So there are single-story houses. My neighbor lives in a single-story house. Point one. Point two, Jeff mentioned transition. Transition is a good point. Nowhere else in Centerton is this zoning sandwiched on all sides by R2 zoning. It's used as a transition type zoning. between lower density and higher density. When you sandwich it in between, we're not using transition. And third, yes, these are deep lots. Yes, there's going to be a setback, but the PUD also calls for barbecue grill areas in the green space. The green space is along the fence that connects to Creekside. So the house might be further back, but the barbecue is going to be up against my back fence. We go back to fire hazard. That's all.
You may be getting repeat customers. 1330 Elizabeth Loop, Bruce Barkley. This is something the builder just said, and I'll address you guys about it, but when you're called hypocritical, when you come up here and you fight for you to have, you know, the kind of place that you believe you moved to and that you'd like to live in, and you want good planned growth, and you want all these things like affordable housing, but to be called hypocritical, I don't think the builder wants to get into a fight about being hypocritical. Right now, we're trying to do this for his bottom line so that he can make the most money out of this 10-acre slot that is in the middle of R2 housing. And that point needs to be made. That he's asking for a variance. There's a plan here. You guys sat down after Creekside was built and Quail Ridge was built and said this should be R2. To be up here fighting for what we believe is right for our neighborhood is what we're here for and what you guys are here for. I think it was a poor choice to act as if any of our points are hypocritical. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak?
Gary Pizer, 1531 Quail Ridge again. Just to address the timing, but he says he's 2 years out before anything's probably gonna happen. I've lived here over 4 years. And I've heard greenhouse gonna get expanded since I've lived here. So I would bet on his timeline over the greenhouse expansion at this point. That's all I got.
Yeah, Joseph, my hand 1741 Great Place. So yeah, going back to the aspects of safety and the delays that's been going on with construction, the delays that's been going on with labor, cost of materials. If the greenhouse road expansion gets pushed back, is that a possibility that greenhouse road expansion could get pushed back?
The Greenhouse Road expansion at the intersection of Highway 12 is scheduled to be done within 1.5 years to allow 2 dual turns left. They're going to do that before the whole improvement design of Greenhouse Road. So the dual turn left one from Greenhouse Road on the Highway 12 is anticipated in a year.
But that doesn't remediate the.
I'm just answering your question.
That
That's your question.
I'm saying that doesn't remediate safety concerns along Greenhouse Road. That's just the turning into Greenhouse. But it's feasible that the widening of the street that would make it safe to access, this area could be delayed further.
Or it could be sped up. We don't know.
Okay. But more than likely, given current conditions, it's likely to be delayed, given the construction issues that the builder, alluded to.
It's all speculation. It could be sped up.
Okay, so it's all speculation. So that's the concern with the safety. If you build this thing and then we have all these new residents here, great, but that's a lot of new residents going in and out of one area. If it's all speculation, when the widening of the road would take place, how can you build something with the idea that there's going to be safety?
They're not linked.
Well, I would propose they should be linked, given the safety issues that are currently occurring on Greenhouse Road and getting in and out of there, given the traffic situation.
One of the questions that we'll go through here in just a little bit, it's not safety, honestly. I understand the residents' concerns and it's well noted. It gets noted every time that we have a rezone where there may add some additional traffic. There's lots of other things that are the same way, including the junior high as an example. The junior high, there actually was a traffic study that was done, and that's the reason there were improvements to the road in order to build it. So there are times in which we ask the right questions about safety and we hear people. It has not stopped the development though, because we cannot wait for each and every one of them because we need not only the residents, but we also need the commercial in order to support the additional safety things like traffic, things like that.
Right, but these are all residentials.
And these are residential.
And I think any of you who've been on Greenhouse realize that is an extremely narrow road, gets extremely backed up. And if it's still speculation on when the end date of that would be, adding a lot more dense housing in there through one road may not be the best source of planning for what I'm saying, but thank you.
And just for clarification, two things that were brought up, Diane already mentioned, but the request is not for multifamily. And it's technically not a variance that they're requesting tonight.
Highly dense. thing.
They're not asking for multifamily, okay? And they're technically not requesting a variance, they're requesting R3 zoning. Are there any additional questions or comments from any of the commissioners before we go through our discussion?
I would just like to state that the rezoning is completely separate from the PUD at this point in time. What we're voting on right now is just the rezoning. So in my mind, the PUD and legally, the PUD should not influence or even be brought up in the zoning consideration. Just want to remind
We'll
everybody.
make that same point there, so we can't consider the number of units or design of the units or where the barbecue grill is gonna be located, none of that. It's just the land itself.
I mean, if you guys wanted, we could go through the PUD first.
Hey, I think it does nobody any good.
It influences either way, I mean, it's.
And
Gee, I don't-
Jeff, with the R2, an R2 lot could not be built in this area due to the 90 feet of right of way that is being basically donated and built for the city by this property, because they would not fit on there with the narrowness of the lot. So R3 is pretty much for any kind of single family homes, the only option.
That conforms to a straight zoning without a variance for R2. And it's the depth.
It's, yes, it would be the depth that would be wider, but there wouldn't be room for them to be.
Could not access from the arterial.
No, they would have to be from internal
So that
streets.
Causes them to have an additional road for back.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Which condenses it more with another road.
Can you explain that to us, because we're not understanding that part, at least I'm not understanding that part, can we? Matthew Freeman, 1621, Quail Ridge. Can you explain that a little bit more detail, because that's one of our requests is that we do keep it as a R2, just as what it is around us. So can you explain that, what that consideration is, so that way we understand it?
The road that they're building on the south side that's going through the property, they cannot have their driveways off of that. So that would force them to build another 50-foot wide right-of-way strip on the north side of the units that they could access off of. And that doesn't leave enough depth between the roads to build an R2 lot that conforms to the zoning code.
And the setbacks and off the road.
Yeah. That's what you're saying, right?
That is correct.
So the idea behind the PUD and the reason we even created a PUD back a couple years ago was to give the ability for them for basically for green space and to come in, because there's actually more restrictions that we can place on a PUD. And that's what they're requesting after this, okay? But from a compatibility, from what they can do here, the R2 is probably not gonna work because of that. It just doesn't fit, or we're here with a variance and they're requesting maybe something smaller. We don't know that, but that's the reason. It's just sheer math. Once you start getting all your setbacks and everything else in an R2. And the large street.
Hi, Howard Moyes, Moyes, 1541 Quail Ridge. Is the minor arterial a foregone conclusion? There's no changing that, that's not that it will be there at some point, because I don't know that that was put in the plan, given the density in that area already. And you're talking about, I don't think you're gonna relieve that much traffic on Quail Ridge to put another road in there. And now you've got a sixth road coming out of the west side on the greenhouse with more cars.
The idea of that road is to go farther west.
I understand it. So now you're gonna be pulling even more cars on the
Much farther
greenhouse.
west, much farther west.
I understand that. You're pulling more cars.
We don't know that.
Greenhouse.
We don't know that. We really don't.
Don't insult our intelligence.
Why wouldn't they already?
The density, you're putting in Featherston subdivision now that's got tight density, you're putting all these cars in and you're saying, we don't know if there's gonna be traffic on Greenhouse?
We don't know what this road's gonna do. This is designed to be future. And that's the reason that it was there as part of our master street plan, was to take traffic west and east to connect to other roads that are north and south. That's the reason why we put it there on the,
Road east, connecting west, it is going to be bringing traffic. That's where most of the growth in Centerton is going. And
They might go-
Greenhouse right now is the only major north-south road on this side of town.
but if that road continues to go west, then there are other options to go north and south. If you look at the master street plan.
Two right there on the plan.
Right? That is just as much speculative or even more so.
It's a plan.
I agree.
The more
It's a plan.
roads you have connecting, better distribution you will have of traffic, instead of everything on Kimmel, everything. No, the otherwise they have to go all down to Shell Road.
We're talking decades. Before roads are gonna get built. I mean, realistically, we're talking 5 to 10 years before Greenhouse is gonna be widened to handle the traffic that is going to be.
I thought you were concerned about Buckhorn
Uh,
Flats connecting to Greenhouse, and if
I am.
it's 10 years,
And the traffic that it's going to put out onto Greenhouse.
Greenhouse should be important. Then.
And they do also take Buckhorn Flats and then cut through your neighborhood, Quail Ridge, to get to Greenhouse Road. So the whole point of having this road, not just to create another road for people to go through, but to get people out of your neighborhood to use the minor arterial instead of your neighborhood street that was not designed to have driveways on it and people using it as a cut.
I think you guys are not giving enough credence to our concern about traffic.
Let me say one thing,
Through your neighborhood.
when the subdivision behind you all went in. And they put that road in there, there was a lot of people that were here from y'all subdivision said they're gonna cut through our neighborhood, they're gonna cut through our neighborhood. I went out there and watched, there's a lot of you going that way, that would have never went that way because. You didn't want, you found another way to get off and not have to go down Greenhouse, or you found a better way. And I mean, I honestly went and watched that, cause I was like, I was on your guys' side, thinking, well, that is kind of a bummer, but then I started seeing cars going west. In the mornings, so speculation didn't work then, because, I mean, we were listening to, I understood, but. They were going down Buckhorn Flats, and there's a little bit of dirt road, they didn't care, they went on down and come around and went down Rainbow Road. I mean, it just. That speculation, sometimes you really don't know till you see it, or, because I was really thinking, there'll nobody go east. Or, I mean, all the traffic go east, there was as much going west as there was east. And that was a road that was there.
Devin, can I add to that? And Tony can probably explain it better than me, but you look at a traffic study for this specific 10-acre parcel. It would have to degrade the road's level of service in order to warrant any traffic improvements. The fact of the matter, I know nobody wants to hear this, but the fact of the matter is the 41 units is not going to bump that down a level of service because we already have problems there. The traffic study on this would not warrant any improvements, and if there are improvements, it would just be along their frontage.
The improvement should be at the ingress of
It'd
the
be
intersection.
at the end that you were just talking about. Yeah.
I'd like to also tell, I looked up the RDOT stats for Greenhouse,
How many trips?
13,000.
13,000 trips a day.
Yeah, that's correct. That I can verify that. I have checked the traffic counts before I came up there.
So that's the RDOT count.
Thank you.
Bruce Barkley, 1330 Elizabeth Loop. I just wanted to ask a question about that, because I know that there's a traffic study online about Greenhouse that they did that moved it. Pardon me if I don't have the exact way that they grade it from a C to a D when they did the apartments down by the Regional Airport Parkway. How do we know that 80 cars more wouldn't put that into an E category or a worse category?
Well, that's kind of what we leave up to our engineering staff, our planning staff, as a requirement of the plan development process. We never get traffic studies. You can't require a traffic study for a rezone. It's only dependent on what they develop there. So that's the point when you get the traffic study.
You do have to take this into consideration and in the density of a neighborhood. In an R, three. versus
Traffic,
an
it's strictly land use. The traffic concerns really spring up with the development.
So that's, you're saying the zoning is a different decision.
That's why I said we can't really consider 31, 41, 2001 units.
You have to plan for
Not in
that.
the rezone. In the rezone, you have to come with the mathematical, what you can do
So in zoning, you have to plan for the highest density it could be then. I mean,
In R2, yeah.
in R2, or R3.
R3.
R3, excuse me.
So what is the highest density R3 single family can be?
Would be 7 units per acre. Actually, it's 7, yeah, 7.
70 units would be 140 cars. So you have to make a decision today on zoning.
7 units per
Well,
acre.
he's saying just-
Times 10,
acres.
10.
but they're not gonna get that because of the roads.
Right.
But yes,
But yeah, you would look at the backs, which would have roads and setbacks and things of that nature, you know. Mathematically.
We're going to go through the 5 questions that we need to consider for the rezone from A1 to R3 single family. The first one is the rezoning consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan, including the adopted land use plan. If not, why? The part of this that is with the adopted, is consistent with the adopted land use plan is the fact that they're requesting single family
and medium density, right?
and medium density according to the math that they have had a discussion on. Anybody have any additional comments, questions, or anything that would be different than that?
Jeff, I do, in the land use plan, in the packet, it states low density residential. And I can't quite determine on the color if it's supposed to be the
It
darker
is-
yellow or the lighter yellow, but I
It is
wasn't.
low, medium density residential, which according to the comprehensive plan, is anywhere from 3 to 7 units per acre and low, medium. So yes, in our zoning, which we're still trying to catch everything up to match everything. And the zoning is just called medium high, but it does fall for the comprehensive plan into low, medium. density.
Okay.
So that overlap.
Correct. There is an overlap as that was mentioned at the previous meeting.
Is everybody in agreement with those statements?
Yes.
Is the proposed rezoning compatible with the surrounding area and zones? I believe the single family, which it's surrounded by, is compatible with the surrounding area and zones, but I would open it up to comments from any of the commissioners.
Let's say strictly on the zoning front, not considering anything else that it is yet to be presented. It is compatible, that's my opinion.
Yes, I will be on the no side of that.
Okay.
Just with all that is surrounding it, to put that little strip does not seem compatible with my, just an opinion.
Anybody else? Okay. Would all the permitted uses in the new zone be compatible in this location and the surrounding areas? Keeping in mind, they're requesting R3 single family, which I would argue the same thing as the previous question. And open it up for additional comments or in regards to that.
With the removal of the commercial, it's straight single family. Adjacent to single family, so yes, I agree with you, Jeff.
Greg?
Well, based on the fact that it is single family and the permitted uses, I would have to agree.
It's compatible. Yeah, if I've just noticed something, I got a question. While we're talking about compatibility, just to the west of this development. On the north side of this, there's also R3 on the north side of Buckhorn Flats, so there's R3. I just want to make sure I'm reading that map
That's
correct.
correct.
So we've already got a neighborhood to the west of this development along Squirrel Ridge. That is already R3.
Yes, there we go. Oops. Yes, it is R3, and then there is also R3 kind of south.
So I would
West.
say yes, yeah. I think it's compatible with the area. If you look to the west, just on the north side of Quail Ridge Way, you've got a R3 ready.
This one's a little odd because it is kind of surrounded by
Well, it's a
future.
transition there. I mean,
But
because
that-
we've got C2 to the north, but yeah.
The
but this-
trails and the lowlands there that separate that or is why it's surrounded like a horseshoe.
But we still have R3 touching this subdivision that people are concerned about with this new subdivision coming in. We have the same zoning.
Yeah, and if you go further and look at the land use plan, there's the business park slated
Right, yeah.
right there as well.
Yeah.
And the area that is currently the C2 and C3.
Thank you, Tony. Next question, would the rezoning provide a benefit to with this landowner but not be considered for other similar properties in this area? And I do not believe that it provides one benefit to this landowner. We would have taken the same and will take the same consideration for any other properties that are in this area.
I agree.
Does anybody disagree with that? If the public is opposed, why? Are the objections based upon factual information relating directly to this request or opinion based? Does any factual information presented apply to this rezoning situation? And again, some similar comments as we heard before in regards to compatibility, traffic, density, consistency. The only fact that we had that was brought up afterwards was what was shared in regards to the 13,000 trips per day, which is based on RDOT in their last study, I believe. So that was one fact that was brought up in the argument, yes or no, but just the fact that that's the number of trips that are on the road per day. Anybody have any additional comments or questions in regards to any of the comments from the public? Are there any additional comments or questions in regards to this rezone before we take a vote?
I do have one more question, Jeff. To make sure I understand Dan previously. So the really only other or use of this is R2, which you stated previously is not compatible with this property, correct? So we would be denying the ability of the property owner to basically develop this land in any kind of residential other than a R3 or higher.
Correct.
We're keeping the arterial road.
And I
And
think
we're
that's
not-
fairly important.
Correct.
Okay.
Any additional comments or questions? If there are not, then I would entertain a motion for rezone 22-20 commercial homes by Roth at 8931 Greenhouse Road from A1 to R3 single family.
This is Jerry. I'll make a motion to approve the zone 2220 commercial homes by Ross. 8931 Greenhouse Road from A1 to R3 single family.
This is Ben, I'll second.
With a motion and a second, if you will do a roll call vote, please.
Tony Ingle,
Yes.
Jerry Harris,
Yes.
Ben Lewis.
Yes.
Devin Murphy,
Yes.
Craig Langford,
Yes.
Ron Sessoms,
Yes.
Tony Davis,
Yes.
Jeff Safarth.
Yes. Thank you, guys. All right, next on the agenda this evening is also old business from the previous meeting. And so I would entertain a motion to bring this back to the table.
I'll make a motion to bring this.
Sorry, I'll second.
Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? All right, the applicant is asking for PUD 2203, The Landing at 8931 Greenhouse Road. Proposed zoning R3 single family, which was just approved. Again, it's 10.38 acres. And the commercial lot is gone. Jeff, do you want to give us an overview of what you guys are requesting here?
Commercial lot omission need to be added to the agenda, or that make sure that was in the.
Because it was the same
Because
thing.
We didn't change any of that. Okay.
But the commercial lot is gone.
Commercial lot's gone and we're 41 single family units on 15 acres. There's 27% green space, so we're above the requirements. And we're providing closed and detention and water and sewer extensions. Nothing out of the ordinary, looking at single family subdivisions, except for narrower lots. There's a lot of people nowadays don't want the yard to deal with it. The younger generation, and they still have a 2,000 square foot house to live in, 2-car garage. They don't have a big yard to take care of. That's really it.
Jeff, can you tell us specifically what sort of, we'll call them variances, lie between what's designed and the straight park rezoning? Is it just the lot width?
The lot width,
And we're going from
60 to 35. They're 135 feet deep.
so the overall area. Does that meet?
It's close. I think it's
1,725.
like 4,700 as opposed to 6,000. So it's like 12.
So it's the area and the width.
And what kind of architecture and other designs are you? And I know that's always part of the process.
I think it would help you to explain all that kind of.
Okay. Well, they're gonna be more of a modern style, using hardy, the hardy siding. We're not gonna do the vinyl. So it'll be a masonry product, a mix of board and bat. A lot of what we do out in, if you've been through West Ridge, you've seen a lot of that modern style house, just on a smaller scale. Got some brick wainscot up to the bottom of the windows. We've got some color samples here that we've used, that we've presented, nothing out there, nothing crazy, no Razorback red or anything crazy like that. But very tasteful. It's kind of like what, kind of catering to what the market is wanting right now. We just that's what we're seeing. It's kind of what they're looking for. And so architectural shingles, the brick, instead of a veneer brick, it's actually going to be a true brick. And you've got, of course, your masonry siding, your board and bat, your a little bit of cedar, cedar accents on it, which everything will be painted. But kind of a smaller version of what we did in original single spoke roofs. And it's just really simple, but tasteful, very clean. But as far as the outside of the building go, try to be as maintenance free as we can. People don't want, I just said they don't want to mow yards. Well, they also don't want to have to go in and paint their house every 5 years. And this hardy, you don't have to touch it for 20 years. So it's just try to make it as maintenance free as we can.
What kind of landscaping do you have proposed?
Sorry.
What kind of landscaping do you have proposed? Any sort of buffer?
Yeah, I mean, we've not gotten to that point yet, of course, everything we do. But if we see that there's a need for that, then, we'll definitely have landscaping, but there's not gonna be a whole lot of room to run a lot between the houses.
No, not at all. I was more concerned with the backyards and the street side.
When we come in with a plat, it'll be shown on that.
Right.
Landscape architect.
I like to bring this up right now in this point in the process, so you kind of know what to expect.
Right.
I think some buffer on the back is probably gonna be very important.
You guys, sure. Absolutely.
Probably go a lot with the neighbors, far with the neighbors back there.
I agree.
We're trying to keep as much existing trees as possible too.
Now, to the west of this property on the, where the floodplain is, there gonna be a trail actually built there? Or is there gonna be easement given? What's the plan on the far west part of this property?
Guess we'll just be the easement until they build the rest of the trail. It wouldn't make any sense just.
I think our master trail plan does go through this. It's shown.
Next through there and then goes all the way.
So he'll need to dedicate.
No additional questions for Jeff. We'll get a staff overview real quick, Diane.
Thank you.
I said the big change on this was, of course, when you saw it at the last planning commission meeting when it was tabled. They did have the commercial that has since been removed. It did create an increase of five more single family homes. So there's a total of 41. The lots, I believe that it's past 7 homes, then they have to be sprinkled. So these will be sprinkled homes per fire code, per regulations by the fire marshal.
Due to
This being a city project and it's a done deal. I mean, it's on the plan. It's going to be built at some point. There's leniency in the code that allows anything over 30 lots that has a planned development like this going through. So that allows them to not have to sprinkle. The code gives leeway and allows us to make a judgment call. This is 41 lots. This is a major, or not a major arterial, but it is a planned major road to go through. So that gives us the leniency in the code. So they will not be sprinkled at this time, unless Jeff decides to change his mind. I can't.
Give me for old information.
Yes, I've never heard it that interpreted that way before. So thank you.
My apologies for
No,
old
I just wanna make
information from previously, so sorry about that. Of course, the master street plan does designate a new minor arterial on the south side of the property that in the future will connect with Buckhorn Flats. So the developer will provide the entire 90 feet of right of way and construct a 2-lane road and a 10-foot total trail with the development. And we are asking that they also do a left turn lane onto, from their development onto Greenhouse Road. It is consistent with the uses for the area as we determined in the rezoning that was just approved a moment ago. The Rocks they do currently own the entire property until they sell them off, and then they would be private ownerships. The design here, it does show, Joey, if you were asking, the differences between what they're requesting for the PUD and what it is for the R3 single family. So the biggest thing is the minimum lot size and the minimum lot width. Again, this does go with the fact that this is a very unique piece of property and you're not going to be able to do a normal sized lot with having to include an additional road on this property to keep driveways off of the minor arterial. Since they do have the rear load garages, the structures will be moved up to 10 feet. So utilities will be behind all of the homes and they will all be accessed from the back. We've asked that there be no parking, of course, along the minor arterial and that all parking, the driveways or any of the internal extra street that they have there. The density, it is 3.9 units per acre. That's 41 divided by the 10.35. And we are requesting that you guys consider that due to the size of the lots that no accessory dwellings will be, accessory structures will be added in the future. There's just not enough space. They are going to be dedicating via a easement or just taking care of it perpetually through the POA. 1.82 acres of green space. Some of this does include the wetland area at the west side of the property. They will have some amenities, possibly so you can use, walk around the pond if that's feasible, things like that, or at least a bench for people to look at. That does count as their open space that they have. We will require a wetland assessment at the time of the development. And Maureen did say that they will need to do a minor floodplain development permit, even though they're not developing anything within the floodplain. We just want to make sure that it's not going to impact anything in the future. As far as the architectural treatments, as far as the PUD is concerned, they are meeting the requirements of the Plains Unit development. And they are sticking with the city standards. As far as landscaping, of course, we will require a full landscaping plan at the time of the subdivision. It's just a little too early for them to determine exactly what landscaping will be included. As Jeff stated earlier, it will probably be more so in the green space at the back and try to keep as many trees there as possible. And to include street trees. And then parking, they are providing 2 covered and 2 uncovered off-street parking spaces per each unit. So that is consistent with the PUD requirements. And signage will be provided as required. Again, that will be looked at with the subdivision development when it does come in. And as you can see in here, it does match with the suitability as required with the PUD for the city of Centerton.
That's some questions.
I need to.
Go first, Tony.
My question is, I noticed the road, the arterial road stops before it gets to the property line. How do we ensure that the connectivity is gonna go all the way to the end of the property? What, if it ends right there? And then and the property over to the west finally develops there, you're gonna miss that gap right there. How do we get that gap completed?
They're providing the right of way.
Okay, but, okay, so they're giving us right away, but how's the street getting built? Are they putting money in lieu of, or what? What is gonna get that street built all the way to that property?
Yeah, why,
We could request that with the subdivision plans.
why is it just being built all the way to the edge of the property?
We'd have to build a bridge.
Right?
They would have to build a bridge. And they're already doing the whole road.
Okay,
They're already dedicating the full right of way instead of half as typically.
Oh, I got you.
And building.
Full right away dedicated, I got you.
Full right of way.
But, I think we could do. Have we looked at the numbers on that to make sure? I would assume that it would work in the city's favor on that deal. As far as. What are the costs of half the road, half the right of way, which would be typical versus all of the right of way and leaving off this short section of road. I still believe it's probably in favor of the city when you do that cost analysis, but that would be a question. Go ahead, you got anything else?
yeah, that's just my concern is how, when the property develops to the west, how do we?
Connect those two.
Yeah, okay, because they'd have to build a bridge, but now that means we're gonna have to build a bridge.
Yeah.
So,
So,
Is it worth it?
I mean, is there, should we,
yeah, you can't get it anywhere else. You get half on here and then half on that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's my concern, I think.
yeah, money, or is the city would the city be on the hook to build a bridge to complete the missing section that's caused by development, even though they were getting 300-foot road? I'm just curious, what's the plan?
I don't know that this road is being caused by the development because it's in our master street plan as a needed minor arterial. So it would either be the city would have to purchase that property in order to complete that road and also do the bridge. So that's how I was looking at it. Edgar Allen.
Anybody here from streets?
Edgar. Oh, no, he's not here. Supposed to be on Zoom.
May just be some box culverts. We haven't got that far.
That's what.
And we're digging in real deep right
Yeah.
now. I understand, but that's gonna be a point of.
Without looking at that. That's what I'm planning to see what's there.
The plat process, we can do a cost analysis and see what the land costs and what's actually gotta be built. I can make them pay a fee in lieu of or vice versa.
I mean, you got anything else?
With the extension of the road, I mean, there's gonna have to be a longer map made. I mean, are we incurred, will we have to incur the cost of the longer the longer map? Because you're building in a floodway. I mean, who's paying the FEMA cost for the? Is that intended by the vote to be paid for by the city? I mean, that's the question. If you extend it over the flood, you're in a floodway, I would think it looks like. Floodway, so there's some costs associated, high dollar costs associated with that. So I'm just bringing that out.
While we're talking about roads, I'd like to back up. Where's your pond going? Because I only see the existing pond.
So we'll just modify that existing pond. And there's probably gonna be one up in the front in that green space.
So I think we'll probably have a problem with modifying the existing pond. If you're keeping it in the right of way, it'd have to be outside of the right of way.
Exactly.
So make sure you're tracking that, because that would be another instance that we would incur some costs.
To go with that is the wetland delineation they have to do. Doing, and that's going to impact that pond design. But at this point, it's just a conceptual.
No, I know, I'm just bringing it up because that kind of ties into Tony's point. And then question for staff and planning commission is well, let me ask the developer, what's the intent on the lot that's closest to greenhouse? Yeah, on the east side of the private drive. Can you scroll to that for us, Eric? Yeah.
Not
that lot.
buildable one, yeah.
We put it there just in case we needed detention there.
Okay.
I don't know that we will, but just kind of.
Yeah.
We may need.
So my concern with that is, and I'll share it, from the plans that I've seen, the right of way for greenhouse is coming off the west side of the road. So they put a pond there, we obviously have an issue.
Well, we're showing the master street plan right away.
Dedicating 50 feet.
Started.
But it lines up with the road to the south, or the property line to the south, right? I'm saying there's additional right of way that will need to be
Right, which they're doing
acquired.
for our master street plan, the 50 feet.
What he is saying that.
There's additional right of way outside of the.
Shifted west
Yes.
instead of centered on that road.
That's exactly what I'm
Centered
saying.
on greenhouses.
So there
I didn't
may
see
be
that. I don't,
additional
I can't speak to that. I don't.
right of way that would be needed.
This is high level, like conceptual, but that's what. It's what I've seen, so that'd be another concern.
Maybe you are saying there's more than 50 foot of right of way being.
It's due to the infrastructure on the east side of the road.
Yep, had the power lines.
Talking about the power
Power
line.
lines that run through there on the east side are gonna make that whole road shift west.
So something to think about, just want to bring that
What
up.
happens to Quail Ridge?
But those are, they don't have nearly enough right of way.
Has anybody approached the city of Centerton about this yet?
I've asked about the design plans and have not had any. No. have not
So you mean the
seen
city of
preliminary.
Bentonville?
Mhm.
You mean the city of Bentonville?
No, city of Bentonville is not, this is a shared project.
Okay,
I'm talking
did anyone talk to
Designer.
Centerton?
the engineer.
So I've talked to them and they don't have plans yet. They're still looking at potential. widths. They don't know if they're gonna go 3, 4, or 5 yet. So the city
They
of
got some guidance. I think they have some more. I would advise that you reach out and try to talk with them.
I spoke with them today with the project manager for that. They don't have plans.
Well,
That's what they told me directly.
They just.
and
Them, they need to be getting one.
what's it looks like the lot on the north side that's adjacent to all of the single family up there is that one lot, 25-foot green buffer?
Yeah. Could be just one big lot.
Is that gonna be held by a POA?
Green space, yes.
Yes.
Right. Is that the only thing on the property that's held by the POA?
Could be that east lot as well, but.
Right.
And then the floodplain area.
The whole proper, the green space.
Okay. Short of that, I think that's all I got. Some items to consider through the
A
design.
lot of these will be addressed in our plan. I mean, we may lose a lot.
I know, I just hate for you to get here with the whole design and then you say, well, why didn't we talk about this before?
Right away is a big deal.
Right away is a big deal.
Take out that house on the corner, I guess.
Yeah, you might lose that one lot and have to bring it.
Well, he's talking about the existing.
Any additional questions before we open it up to the public?
How does everybody feel about the lot width? Size reduction?
My question was for fire, if fire marshal's okay with that lot width reduction, being able to get in between and adequately.
I spoke with Jeff, and Randy, quite extensively, and even the fire chief was involved in the conversations. As long as there's 10-foot separation, that's what the code allows. We did stress that the sprinkler systems are preferred. I can't require them because of that, the verbiage in the code, the way it's stated. But they are assuring me that they will be within the code. So basically their houses are gonna be. Well, make sure there's 10 feet in between the code.
Yeah, it looks like the setbacks are reduced as well to 5 feet, so that means no overhang.
Correct, that's what I was gonna say is, that was kind of with the overhang, but the renderings they showed had a half
Saw that.
1 foot rendering. So I want to see when you're here, it is from overhang with, it's not,
Eve to eve. It's
It
eve
is
to eve.
eve to eve. It is the furthermost projection of the structure, 10 foot in between those two. And that was the conversation we had to make sure that we were able to stay within the code. So
And just so everybody knows, the 7-foot typical allows a 2-foot encroachment for eaves. So that essentially brings it down to 5, but here it's just shown.
there are things they can do. It intensifies the building requirements if they want to go closer.
Fire rated walls.
Correct. No openings, your coffin has to be rated. There's things that they can do to get them closer, but to not require or trigger any enhanced things that they have to do, it has to be the 10-foot.
Did I answer your question?
Think so.
That was my only concern with the lot width was
Well,
accessibility, but it is non-standard. I mean, 35 feet is.
it's not a slight tolerance issue. It's a half almost. Density though, it still meets the R3 density.
Yes, the 3.69 units per acre. 3.96 units per acre.
Which
It's single, R3, single family, because it goes up to,
you get that out of 10 acres
it's for the 10 acres.
and there's 41 units.
10.38, but
Yeah,
Oh, okay, that's, okay.
10.38.
I was just straight 10 and 41.
I did the official math.
That's why I was confused. I'm not used to that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna open it up to the public. So with that, I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
John, I motion open public hearing for PUD 2203. Devin on second.
Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? Okay, we're now open to the public. If there's anyone from the public that wishes to speak or address us or have any comments or questions, we'd ask that you come to the podium, state your name and any comments or questions, concerns that you might have.
Harold Castro, 1501 Quail Ridge Way. Question, first one is, how do you stay updated with, as the changes evolve with the development? Will that be posted in the city's page?
It will, yes. Anytime that this comes before us, it'll be listed as a development plan, should most likely. It would be listed on the agendas that are published, yes.
In terms of the construction, like the physical development of the property, are there like noise considerations in terms of time, like noise ordinance? 'Cause I don't think Centerton has one.
What's the noise ordinance?
10 o'clock. I
Forgot about that.
Sunday.
Construction?
Just noise ordinance.
Straight noise.
That's one of the questions. that's
We do have a noise ordinance. It's been a while since I've looked at it. I don't know.
It's either 9 or 10 o'clock, I believe. We'll have the attorney look it up and.
Yeah, no worries. And I guess when construction happens, in terms of air quality mitigation, all that stuff, they take care of all that, right?
What is it?
Like, air pollution.
Air quality?
Yeah, like the air quality, like. 'cause I
Like
drove
dust,
by
like that.
Greenville today and usually they have the water trucks and there was no water truck and all that dust was coming up. in the
That's a stormwater issue. They're permitted through the state.
air.
And we also have a stormwater officer, I believe, that used to.
Stormwater pollution prevention plan, yes.
Lorraine, is it?
Anthony Martinez.
Okay.
Always meaning as they build it, like,
Yes.
so when it's barren and like the dirt starts picking up.
That's what I'm talking about. It's,
They're required to like kind of keep it down a little bit.
I mean, it's part of their stormwater pollution prevention.
Cool. No, that's it. That's all I had. Thank you, guys. No, I mean, what could go in there, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, the houses do look nice, what they propose so far, so. Thanks.
Brian, just let me know whenever you find a time for me. I appreciate it.
Here we go. Let's see. Does not appear we have a time. It basically says it shall be unlawful for any person to willfully make, continue, or cause to be made or continue to be loud or raucous noise, which term shall mean any sound which, because of its volume level, duration, and character, noise disturbs, injures, or endangers the comfort, health, peace, and safety of reasonable persons of ordinary sensibilities within the city limits as defined below. And it goes into engine exhaust, engine brakes, radios, motor vehicle devices, emergency construction. Here we go. The erection involving excavating, demolition, alteration, or repair of any building so as not to create a loud or disturbing noise between the hours of 10 p.m. until dawn every day, except in the case of urgent necessity.
10 p.m. to sunrise.
Yeah.
10 p.m. to sun up.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. We gotta find fireworks too.
Yeah, I agree.
How does it not?
Good.
Keep us going. Keep us going.
Barclay, 1330 Elizabeth Loop. Mine may be more questions. Number one, I want to say thank you for letting you look out for the trees, because there's some magnificent trees back there. So if that does happen, I think that's wonderful. Will there be any plan for what goes up against the fences in the backyards there? Is that something?
That's what I was asking about previously and recommend some sort of buffer,
Some sort of buffer, and what does that mean? Do we
be a tree line.
tree line?
Lines, hedge lines.
I'm-
Vegetation.
There's a fence there already, or there will be.
Yeah, there's a wire fence, and then there's our fences. The mess right now, so.
That'd be part on subsequent
Submittal.
submittals, architectural, the landscaping plans and all that kind of stuff.
And then, and this may be too narrow, but there's literally a light pole behind my backyard that was put up in the last property. Will there be, electrical poles and things like that, utilities along there?
They won't be able to have any light pollution off of the building, if that makes sense.
This pole sitting right on top of my backyard. I mean, it's.
There's no holes in the back plan. They're just all along
You
the
see
front
the one
tree.
I'm talking about?
They could have come down.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about. The
That was it.
old pole is big.
The turkey vultures love to sit on top of it.
I'd recommend a 22.
Yeah.
I didn't need it. He stepped on the.
Not in the,
Power.
so they'll air rifle, but they won't, I mean, there won't be any lights directly that'll come off of these they won't be able to do the light pollution as well, so.
So we review a photometric plan which shows the candlelight at the property lines, and it has to cut off at the property line. In a while.
1621 Coral Ridge Way. Just would like to have a little bit of clarity in between the artillery road and the houses that back up onto Quail Ridge. I'm not able to see 30-foot streets constructed, okay? Is there going to be any greenery or anything that's going in between this area? Currently, right now, I don't know if you guys are aware of it, but our fence line is not on our property lines because of the trees that have been erected on that before Quail Ridge was even built. So we have our fence line is set off about 3 or 4 feet from the actual property line of ours.
Into this property or away from?
No, it's
Into your property.
Yeah, our property is here, our fence line is here, our house is here, so it's set closer to our houses than what our property line is at. And there's a lot of trees that are pretty big that's actually on my property line that I'd like to keep. And that's, I mean, my property line is actually a little bit farther than the tree. So just trying to figure that out. What does that look like and how are we going to address that?
We're not touching anything on that south property. We're 20 feet away.
You think you can do all your grading and stay away from?
Thank you.
That land's 1290 Elizabeth Loop. I would just like to echo the suggestions for some sort of a tree buffer in between, especially on that north side. And you can see some of, I believe those are topo lines there, but the land in the middle of that field sits quite a bit higher than the houses on the northwest edge there. And concerned a little bit, 41 houses, 4 parking spaces per, so 164 cars potentially. It's a lot of headlights that would be shining into the back of all of those houses. And I think a tree buffer would go a long way. Additionally, the density variances that the developer was asking for, we've done a lot of hand wringing over whether or not this is already compatible. Then to take that, reduce the lot sizes by 30%, reduce the lot width by almost 50%. It seems like we're stretching after already stretching quite a bit. Just one man's opinion, but certainly would appreciate some tree buffer there.
Anyone else wish to speak?
And Joseph Lane, 1741 Grace Place. Just like to echo the sentiments that 100%, it would be wonderful to have a tree buffer there. I also want to go back, just a question, maybe I can't address the audience, but the space between the houses, is that, I understand it's 10 feet to allow fire to get in there? Is that? Okay, but what happens if like people do any kind of landscaping there? Or like most homeowners put sheds there? Does that?
So the request is no accessory structures, which would be a
So
shed.
homeowners won't allow to put.
Correct.
everything in
I
there?
don't think you can
Or
find
city
a
code.
5-foot shed
City codes, okay, and that'll be like enforced by the HOA or?
enforced by
City
code. Okay, cause I just think, normal homeowners put sheds, they plant trees, they plant bushes. Fire come in there.
I don't think we can say anything about the
Okay.
landscape.
I'm just making a point that it's
The,
already.
10-foot is a buffer for the fire code, so
Right.
the fires don't keep jumping. It's not for them to get access between.
No, yeah, but that's kind of it's the same thing, the safety issue, because it's also part of the surrounding community.
And we have several neighborhoods that have that 10-foot buffer.
Yeah, but without sprinklers on them.
I'm at 14 feet. Between my neighbor and I, so. Crazy.
Annabella Freeman, 1621 Pearl. I would like to ask about the trail. We were told that there was going to be a trail, but I don't see it. Is it going to be like a sidewalk? If they can explain
There's a-
what it's going to look like.
10-foot sidewalk, correct, if I remember. So there, see, it's kind of the edge, you might go, can you go point it out, Jeff? Sorry, I'm not doing a very good job pointing where it would go through the connect to the.
10-foot wide all the way down, and then eventually connect to the rail.
So there's so they're providing their portion that connects into the bigger part of the trail system in Northwest Arkansas. So there's an overlay that goes on top of this that does the future of what the trail systems look like. And so this, in the future, should be able to connect into that.
Normally, it's just a sidewalk that's 5 foot wide, and this is 10 foot, double size of sidewalk.
Thank you.
Happy Freeman, Quail Ridge Way. Just have a question for the city, since that's going to be this area, since the walkway is going to be on the north side of the street. And what I was talking about earlier on the south side of the street. Who's going to take care of that area?
City property at that point. Right away, city right away.
Okay, so is the city going to remove any of those trees that are there, or you take them? I mean, that, how would I be able to follow up and making sure I don't come home at one afternoon and find the trees all taken out?
Who's the new street person? I mean, I guess you would have to go to them and just make sure, but again, that might be 2 years from now before you need to visit with them. But I would just figure out who the new street person is.
Edgar. What's his last name? Edgar Harosa. Oh, both? Harosa.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Jake is the street superintendent.
Anyone else wish to speak?
If you have it surveyed and find the pin, is that all you have to go to?
All right,
I just wondered.
all right, thank you.
So I see, I'd like to just mention something. Staff recommendations to meet fire requirements. The interpretation is that they do meet fire requirements. I'd just like to state that. I don't want to go against anything any interpretation or anything. I just want to say I've never seen it interpreted that way before, regardless of master road plans or whatever. So that is different. But ultimately, that is their responsibility and that's their call. I just wanted to go on record and say.
At this time, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Got a motion to close the public hearing for PUD 2203.
Greg, I'll second.
Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? Are there any additional comments or questions before we go through what we need to consider? Okay. Developer's land use is permitted in the presented zoning district and or is compatible with the city's land use plan and or substantially similar to adjacent property. It is single family housing. And it does fall within the units per acre for low to medium. Does anybody disagree with that or have any comments or questions? The development is likely to be compatible with development and land use permitted as of right by the zoning ordinance or substantially all and in the vicinity of the proposed PUD. And I think this one is okay as well. Does anybody disagree with that or have any comments? Provides public benefits that would not be achievable through the normal zoning regulations. And I believe we go back to the comments around the R2 and the layout of the property, the streets and the other things, making this the reason that we're down this path.
I think the biggest public benefit is the entirety of the right of way and the road is being constructed instead of half, which is the requirement.
Correct, instead of half, and then also, you know, the additional open space in a regular straight subdivision that followed all the typical zoning regulations.
I'm iffy on that because it's all floodplain and I feel like we should probably look at that in our PUD code to not count that as 1-to-1, but that's true.
But I mean, it's still a little bit of additional green space and buffer than we could regulate in a regular.
Well, we couldn't require the tree buffer in a normal subdivision like this as well. So that is a benefit.
Adequate public utilities are already in place to service the property, or the developer has sufficient plans and private financial commitment in place to ensure adequate public utilities will be available to service the property. I don't have any concerns as regard to public utilities. Does anyone else? The development will not impose substantial negative external impacts on or prevent the orderly development of adjacent property. Again, this one is not, there's not gonna be anything, you know, adjacent to this particular piece of property.
What do you mean by that, Jeff?
Well, because it's by itself, I mean, this is the last thing to get developed, right? So there's nothing that's gonna be developed around it or anything adjacent to it, correct? Is the way that I read this.
Yeah, external impacts, I think, and I think we've done a good job to mitigate those. And that we've talked about.
The right of way issue would be noted there, in my opinion, that you brought up, if they have to put up more on the west side to make that fit. So that would be the only external impact. To the greenhouse expansion you mentioned earlier.
Oh. Yeah, that's kind of across the board for everybody there on greenhouse. I don't think that's relative to what they're proposing.
So I think you're gonna want to make note of that in that spot. If they do, they already have that blank air, that open lot to the east, on the east end. But you know, those negative impacts on adjacent properties, Greenhouse Road being that one potential impact there.
And greenhouse being the adjacent property, it's a negative impact.
Gotcha. Gotcha. But it matches everything else along that corridor as well, but I completely understand.
Yeah.
I could have swore you said west side, so I was trying to.
You
follow
said
that.
west, but you meant east.
Okay.
You meant east.
Gotcha.
Development doesn't make that negative impact.
Without dedicating it right away, yeah.
But right now, we don't know where that right of way goes.
Yeah, we don't know what
They're
the.
matching on.
You don't know what the plan is.
They're matching on what we require, so I think
Yeah.
that's all.
And then the development does not endanger the public health, safety, or welfare. I don't see anywhere we've gone through from a fire perspective, from a safety perspective, so I don't think it endangers the public health in any way. Does anybody disagree with that or have any comments? Any additional comments or questions before we entertain a motion?
I think we got some recommended conditions. I'm seeing open space, up that to 27 instead of 25. Wetland assessment, this is on page 4. Wetland assessment, we need to stipulate that. I thought that would be required regardless.
It would be required regardless.
Okay.
We'll put it in there because we like to try to cover everything when we do.
Wetland assessment, floodplain permit. Scrolling on down, architectural treatment, adhere to city standards. Landscaping and tree preservation. I think the tree inventory is a little overzealous. But I personally would like to include the mention of the tree buffer on the north. And then street trees along the right of way.
South right away or?
Wherever we can get them, whatever makes the most sense. It sounds like there's some substantial trees on the south side. So maybe we quantify that and show how that works, and maybe we can put them between the trail and the road. That might provide some pedestrian safety. That's it.
There's no additional comments that I would entertain a motion for PUD 2203, the landing at 8931 Greenhouse Road.
I'll do this one. This is Joey. I'll make a motion to approve PUD 2203, the landing at 8931 Greenhouse Road with the following conditions. We up the requirement of green space to 27% from 25%. The developer shall include a wetland assessment and a floodplain development permit. Obviously, the architectural treatment must meet all city standards. As far as landscaping, we're looking for a tree buffer along the northern property line against the adjacent houses. And then the addition of street trees. And the staff recommendation is for private roads. I think you can probably double up on some of that on the north side. I would be willing to count those for your street trees on the north.
So the
Saying if
extra on
we
the-
ask,
extra on the south, so you don't have to have it.
no, I'm saying if there's only 25 feet between the private road at the one, you don't need to double up
No.
on street trees there. You can use the north buffer as those street trees. You can count it, so we don't have to ask for
Fair,
it.
that's fair.
Trees.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Oh, so I second, but John. I was nodding. In my head, I said second.
We have a motion and a second. If you would do a roll call vote for me, please.
Tony Eagle,
Yes.
Aaron Harris.
Yes.
Ben Lewis. Kevin Murphy.
Yes.
Craig Langford,
Yes.
John Sessoms,
Yes.
Tony Davis. Jeff Safar.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Good luck. All right, next on the agenda this evening is under new business is subdivision 22 dash 10 Magnolia Landing preliminary. It's at the northeast of Wagner Road and Vaughn Road. It is zoned R3 single family. 80 acres and 286 single family lots. Wary, how are you tonight?
Chairman, John Wary with Half Associates. For this project, this is an 80-acre residential subdivision. Approximately 240 single family lots and 26 duplex lots. Plan is to develop this in 4 phases. There will be 2 retention basins. They will be improved adjacent streets generally discussed last spring. Stated in the tree agreement. So phase 1 will improve Vaughn Road to 19 feet from the center line, curb and gutter, storm drain. We have a 10-foot trail. With phase 2 will improve South Tycoon Road. 24-foot pavement section, curb and gutter, 5-foot sidewalk, and street trees. And also will improve the north, that'll go from on the road to about halfway up the subdivision, phase 2. Also, we'll build a subgraded base for the rest of South Tycoon Road with phase 2 to support emergency vehicles. In phase 3, we'll build the rest of Tycoon Road, Tycoon Road. Phase 4, we'll build West Tycoon, 24 feet of pavement, curb and gutter, 5-foot sidewalk, and street trees. Try to answer any questions the commissioners have.
Did you say duplex?
Duplex lots.
Duplex?
26 duplex lots.
Where are those located?
They're
It's not zone single?
It says some single family.
R3 SF, and I'm sorry, R3 SF and R3 duplex.
Okay.
Within a zoned R3D area.
I didn't see that on here, that it was.
It was,
Somewhere on there.
our packet says single family, so that's what initially
Yeah, like.
caught us, but where's, oh,
Okay.
there we go.
So there's 26 duplex lots right here.
Okay.
Every zoning request came to you last spring, I believe.
Yeah, it's been a second.
What's that?
So it's been a minute since we saw it.
That kind of odd shaped
Yeah.
green zone in the middle up there.
Can I ask a question if I'm remembering correctly? I could have swore that the developer said they would build the entirety of Tycoon Road when they came through. Does anybody remember that or am I?
Yes and no. I'd say the agreement was that at least with phase 2, when they exceed the 29, they'd have the fire access extended all the way from South Tycoon where it dead ends to tie in, but it'd be just fire access. There'd be nothing to the north. And then with phase 3, they were going to build the rest of
Are they
it.
proposing a full section or just a half section? Or are you proposing a modified section or is it a full
For South Tycoon,
out for Tycoon?
24 foot of asphalt, curb and gutter, 5-foot sidewalk.
Curb and gutter on one side or both?
What's that?
Through there on one side.
Just to the east side.
What's the ultimate width of that road? What's the entirety of that road section? Is it,
According to the master street plan, it's a major arterial. This is what we all talked about last spring.
yeah,
The commission agreed to support a collector street there. As long as the developer dedicate the entire right of way for the major arterial.
wasn't there county?
Dedicating 45 feet of right of way.
I remember we talked in depth on this and I'm trying to recall.
Trying to remember, I
Yeah.
slipped in.
Was this, is it county to the west? Am I mistaken? City? Okay.
No, that's.
Is that a different?
Another property.
Okay, I'm
West.
thinking of a different.
Yeah, that was the Nugget Wagner further.
Yes, that. yeah.
Eric, why don't you take us through your notes while Joey's looking real quick?
So the business concerning tonight for Magnolia Landing is the preliminary plat and the adjacent street agreement. Magnolia Landing will be located on the side of Bond Road. East of current Wagner Road. I don't mind. The subdivision will consist of medium high density, single family and duplex residential homes. The subdivision has access to water and sewer utilities. We are currently awaiting a electrical layout. Phases 1 and. Okay, so there will be two detention ponds, one in phase 1 and one in phase 3. Phase 1 will have access from the south of Bond Road. Phases 2, 3, and 4 will have access from the. Will have access to the west from the proposed South Tycoon Road extension. And then phase 4 will have access to the north on the extension of West Tycoon Road. There is a 10-foot side path shown along the proposed West Tycoon Road, designated as a major collector. Bonner Road will be classified as a minor arterial street. 90-foot right of way. Tycoon Road would be considered a major arterial street with a 100-foot right of way. West Tycoon would be a major collector for right of way. Street trees are proposed on South Tycoon Road. The southwest portion of the property is within one of XNA's overlay districts. To be specific, is the outer safety zone. I reached out to XNA about the coincidence, and their opinion is to oppose, if not at least provide a navigation easement. We are down to some minor comments with plat cleanup, adjustments to storm sewer utility network. Some lots not being. Currently in our review.
That was.
It's
fixed previously.
but they're still.
Where's the 100-foot utility easement. Am I just missing it on here? Where is it at?
It's about, running about halfway up the subdivision east-west.
I missed it too, John. Can you point it out?
Stop that.
Stop.
What are you doing? You're putting a street, so it's gonna be part of the street then?
Is it off the backside of the right of way? Is it off of the backside of the right of way? Is one of the edges of the easement the actual right of way line?
Here's the actual easement line right here.
Okay. So yeah, it's out of the right of way.
Oh,
It's out of the right of way. It's in their yard. It's in their front yard.
Remember, I think the poles were in the median, and that's one of the reasons y'all had a median through there.
One pole right in here,
Then it is in the right of way.
and then there's another pole right here, which is why this is.
Terrible place for a match line.
I know.
Draw your eye away.
A place for a match line.
Have we ever,
Look at it.
is it 100-foot? Have we ever put 100-foot easement? Or right away through 100-foot easement?
So what it comes down to is on that easement, if it's there, if the electric company has to come in and do anything on those poles and damage any of those roads, they don't have the responsibility to fix it.
I understand.
Uh-huh.
Why would we do that?
Can we say you can't do it?
Yeah.
That's where I'm, my opinion is. The electric company has the right to be in there. Without needing to do those repairs. It's on POA knowing that to be they're avoided. Which they're opting not to build to it. So if the electric company does damage it, it's on them to fix the POA.
But it's the-
Public streets.
It's not a private street, it's a public.
It'd have to be dedicated private.
Have you guys talked to the? If they were okay with
Private, we would-
road in their easement?
Electric, yes, they've reviewed.
Yeah, it's great for that. They can drive right up to their. How many poles are in there, John?
Any poles?
Yeah,
There's a pole structure about midway,
in the median.
pole structure right here.
Yeah.
Pole structure right here.
That's why the right of way jogs right there. I've never seen that before. I'll say that. I think it's a public road. I think we can do our best to avoid that. I mean. I understand why it's there. It doesn't impact the lots. Get it, but I don't think it's in the best interest of the city. Why is that? Because they're not obligated to fix that. The road, if they come in there and tear it up. It would also be a nuisance for the people in that subdivision if their road shut down.
To the maintenance.
Yeah, I mean, what if they close the road down? That's the only way in there for fire. Is that phase, no, that's phase 3 or phase
That's the border of 2 and 3.
2 and 3? Personally, I don't think it's in the best interest of the city.
What are the options?
What are your options?
Open it up, not put a street there for one thing.
Yeah. I'm sorry, John, but I mean,
Is that where you're going? That's where, I mean, that's what his neighbors.
we haven't.
So when we came to talk to you about the streets.
Yeah, did we talk about the electric easement in the public right away?
They were jogging their street around the poles.
Well, I knew that, yeah.
It's the same scenario, I could. So essentially it'd be a median around the pole at that intersection.
Yeah, I get that. It crosses it. It doesn't run longitudinally. That's just my opinion. That's just my opinion. There's multiple other people here.
But yes, it has been the same design.
is that a high voltage line, 161,000? Or
They're big poles though, right?
metal poles? Yeah, it's 161,000. I'm sure.
It is unique, but I mean, we've got streets all over, well, I say all over, there's several examples of where this is somewhat the same, where they put a island around the poles and drove around the poles, while the pole was in the middle of the right of way. So it's not.
But does it cross it perpendicular or does it run with it? I've never seen one that ran with.
We got a couple of streets in Bentonville that have perpendicular lines crossing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, I can understand that. You can't get around that sometimes.
Well, that's what I'm saying, that
You would have access.
something that can't be accomplished. I understand what you're saying. It's not the most ideal, but it's definitely. It's a
Oh, and I
deal.
mean, you're looking at 10 houses there.
Doesn't C Street, that they'll have that kind of situation. Power poles are in median or.
These are the older subdivisions I'm referring to that have existing power poles that
Yes.
had outlets put in and poles in the middle of island here, so. But I mean, I agree with Joe. It's definitely not the most ideal, but. In my opinion, it's not a deal breaker. We done.
Alex, did you have any comments? I know you're here for the airport tonight, but you can approach the podium if you'd like.
They're waiting on that. Hey.
You
Can't put it aside.
Good show, though.
Should have been here last time.
I know, I was like. Alex English, representative of XNA. So same kind of spiel. This does fall in our overlay district, so it does bring up some safety concerns, being so close to a commercial service airport. So for that reason, you know, we would oppose and have the three factors or the three conditions we would ask for, and those were the sound attenuation efforts, you know, those double paned windows, the extra doors, things like that. And then a plat notification, and really the number one thing we asked for and would be the most helpful for the city, for the airport, for the developer, builder, would be a navigation easement, which is essentially the rights to fly over the subdivision. I know we've talked about that at length, but I would like to really thank Art and John. We spoke today on the phone. I think, you know, maybe approaching the developer during these plat phases might be a little bit more conducive, just because the navigation easement is such a odd, weird legal tool that it's just not used hardly ever. And so we do hope to, you know, continue discussions with them. We do have to go on record so that I'm here, and for our grant assurances, you guys kind of know. So I want to make sure to go on record at this meeting, but I really do appreciate Art and John talking to us today, and we hope to maybe have more discussions. Any questions for me?
No, thank you.
Does the city have an ordinance? Does the city have an ordinance like for decibel level for airplanes flying over?
Not that I'm aware of.
I think that would be.
We don't have an overlay district, if that's what you're asking, Jerry.
Yeah, we could, but we don't.
Right.
There's a lot of, it's very controversial among folks in the city.
Can we require a developer to have a decibel level if there's no ordinance?
It's the
That's
reason.
why we asked. We
Yeah.
can't.
And that was the reason we also asked about the navigation easement and have explored it a couple different times. Potentially, I guess would be the right word, helps the city in the future if somebody's upset or it injures someone because of the noise. And I don't know, Brian, if you want to address that or what you guys are thinking on in regards to that or the navigation.
I mean, you know, my legal position would be, I think it protects the city to go ahead and get it in there and to put these folks on notice that, yeah, they are gonna have flyovers on that, and to go ahead and grant that. I think it can limit our liability. If something does happen, we'll, if we're named as a defendant.
And I think at one point we did talk about signage, right? That
We'll get it.
owners that you are in a navigation. Yeah.
Well, I think we're
On the plat.
on the plat, right?
Plat.
And I think that's essentially what's being asked for tonight.
you guys aligned to the abrogation easement or not? What's that? Are you guys aligned to the abrogation easement?
They're willing to review it. Problem is, this was discussed at commission. At the rezoning hearing of commission, and when the ordinance went to council, there was no language about any easements required.
I don't think you can require that on the rezoning.
You can't require, it, right? So, and then it's gone through 3 reviews and nobody said a word about it. So this came up this afternoon about 2:00 with the discussion with Alex.
But it was also brought up, it was brought up at the rezoning with us.
But we've never seen what these easements look like, and from my understanding, I don't think the airport ever had one of these in place yet.
Not yet, we were close and then.
The developer wants to see the language of the easement, at least let their legal people look at it.
And really, it's more pertinent
Something that
to the final plat rather than the preliminary plat. We're not doing anything with it on the preliminary plat.
I think
Right.
Yes.
And if that is more conducive for this whole procedure, just to come into the final plat, I think that's fine. And to your point, we did call it 2:00 today and you guys need time to review with your lawyers. I totally understand that. But absolutely. And for a final plat, I can show up again and we can have the same discussion.
So the final plat's the legal document that creates the lot, grants the easement. So with the preliminary plat, other than that, just carrying over in their drawing,
Yeah.
you're really not getting any protection at that point.
Gotcha. Really, this is more so to go on record, but if that is really better procedurally to do, I think that would make.
I think as much notice as we can give the developers.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, good deal.
And again, I just want to be clear. We're talking about the navigation easement over the zone 3. Outer safety limit.
Of the overlay. Zone 3 of that overlay.
Is it just zone 3 or is it what's the blue dash line that we have?
It's the traffic pattern zone. So we kind of discussed this earlier. It doesn't fall fully in that not. The property fall into. Zone 3.
I just want to make sure everybody's clear. This is the safety, outer safety zone right here. And it cuts the corner of the top.
Corner. Yeah.
Looks like in your pond, right?
Do what?
In your pond?
Yeah, I mean, it'll slip a few lots. Sure. It's 20% of the subdivision.
Well, and I think being in the traffic pattern zone 2, it would be our preference to have an easement over that as well. The parcel that's outside or the part that's outside of the outer traffic pattern zone, it wouldn't need an easement.
So about a third of the subdivision is not in any zone.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, just what's impacted. Just what's impacted is what we would be looking for.
That's what I'm trying to understand.
From a navigation easement, yes.
It's impact.
The blue,
Yes.
the blue line is what she's asking for. So about a third of your subdivision would be out of it. Can I ask a question? Typically when easements are granted, they're paid for. Does XNA purchase these easements?
That's a great question that has not been prompted yet. We
Really?
are paying pay for the legal fee. We were doing that with another subdivision that was being put in place where we worked on the agreement. I'm not sure because we're a government entity, how that would work, but I can ask our general counsel and get looking into that as well.
Probably a question that they're gonna have.
Yeah, absolutely.
What I have now.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Makes sense. It didn't have to go back to the-
Have you gotten or is she working on getting you the document?
Yeah, so just want to put this on record. Thank you, Alex, for the call. She already sent it to us. We're reviewing it with our attorneys, so we should be in contact.
Any additional comments or questions? If not, then I would entertain a motion for subdivision 2210, the Magnolia Landing preliminary.
John, I motion to approve subdivision 22 landing preliminary plot. G.
Devin, I'll second.
Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? All right. Thank you, guys. Good luck. Thank you, Alex, for working with them. Tech review on 9/22. Next planning commission meeting is 10/4. Can't be here, please let us know.
Yeah, I have a question,
Yes, sir.
just a general question, there. Kind of like some people that maybe a little more engineering driven than me answer this, but with the detention ponds, just happened to notice it on this plat and that's been around town as well. Is it general to put the detention ponds on the street side, like the major streets? Is there a reason for that?
Really gonna fall where the low point in the property is. You want everything to drain there naturally. It makes it easier, so you're not fighting grade.
Typically, that's where you put them. Yeah, I'd say it just goes where the lowest potted area is and where water is discharging now. Just because obviously you're building whole property slopes, you can't get a pond on the high side. So, and you're trying to, if it's already a stream that's going through the property, you're gonna continue to discharge through that stream. Having the pond there with your control outlet. You already have that in place. So it's just again, like you said.
Is there an issue?
Well, I just wondering like from a look, from an aesthetics.
You know what would look great on the berm of
It's blasphemy amongst the staff. but we don't want a mutiny tonight. Any additional comments or questions? If not, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Is anyone opposed? Thank you, guys.
This is. Joey and I are proposing.
If I gotta take a
Hey, you were still way
You
off.
guys have closer.
Hey,
That's that over.
when you say